Hi and welcome back to ScottiesTech.Info. I'm Scotty with my co-host Cletus, and a few months ago I made a video called Another Reason Not to Use Wi-Fi. You might go and buy a Wi-Fi router or access point and it will say something like 1.8 or 2.2 gigabits per second, and you compare that to the speed of a 1 gigabit per second Ethernet cable and you conclude that Wi-Fi is faster. In reality, that maximum speed of your Wi-Fi access point is sort of theoretical total maximum, but practically speaking, when you as a single user connect to that Wi-Fi router or access point, practically speaking, you're going to get way less than that speed. And in that video, I explained the 3 or 4 major problems. So instead of reinventing the wheel, let's just review what those problems are. So what's actually going on here? Well, when it comes to Wi-Fi, there are 4 primary problems, and the first one is distance. So the farther you are away from your Wi-Fi box, as you know, the crappier your connection is. Now, the second problem is kind of related, and it's interference. Of course, everyone has Wi-Fi. Your neighbors have Wi-Fi. You have Wi-Fi. Sometimes you have multiple Wi-Fi access points in your house to get good coverage. If you're using the 2.4 gigahertz band of Wi-Fi, you also have other gizmos using that 2.4 gigahertz band, that band of frequencies. So you might have Bluetooth, which is 2.4 gigahertz. You have Bluetooth on your smartphone, Bluetooth on your tablet, there's Bluetooth in your car, Bluetooth is everywhere. You also have things like, in Europe they call it DECT, D-E-C-T, it's basically a digital cordless phone. Guess what? 2.4 gigahertz. So not only is that 2.4 gigahertz band totally saturated with all these different gizmos, but then you might live in a neighborhood or in an apartment complex, or you might live in a big city where it's even worse, where there are so many different Wi-Fi access points and Wi-Fi routers, and everyone is using it so much that the frequency band is just like utterly cluttered. And all of that is going to make your actual throughput, your maximum speed of your Wi-Fi connection much, much slower than the maximums that they say. Next we get to sharing. So when they say, okay, at 2.4 gigahertz you get 600 megabits max throughput. That's not, it's 600 megabits for all the users. So if you have 4 users, then the maximum that any one of those 4 users could see is 150 megabits. But it's even worse than that, because until very recently, Wi-Fi was more or less half duplex. Now, half duplex and full duplex simply means half duplex is I can either send data or I can receive data, but I can't do both at the same time. Full duplex means I can simultaneously send data and receive data at the same speed. Now, as I said, until very recently, Wi-Fi was only half duplex, which means if you have 600 megabits and you've got 4 users and they're downloading or uploading at the maximum possible rate, then each of those users is reduced to 150 megabits per second, but they can't transmit and receive at the same time. So effectively, that number is cut then in half again. Now, it doesn't exactly work that way because Wi-Fi routers and access points are very good at trying to share the data pipe that they have, but the point is that you are limited to that 600 megabits or that 1600 megabit number is limited by the number of users, the interference, the fact that it's half duplex, yada, yada, yada. Now you might say, well, there's a new flavor of Wi-Fi that's coming, 802.11ax, and supposedly it has some wonderful stuff. In fact, the current flavor of Wi-Fi also has what's called MU-MIMO, MU-MIMO, which stands for multiple user, multiple input, multiple output, whatever. So what that actually means is that it kind of solves this problem of Wi-Fi being half duplex, in that what the Wi-Fi access point actually does is it takes 2 of its channels. For up to 4 users usually, it will allow each user to connect to 2 channels at the same time, one for sending data and one for receiving data. That's kind of simplified, but that's more or less what it's doing. And so that kind of eliminates the whole half duplex problem. And it tends to kind of speed it up, but you're typically limited to only 4 gizmos that get that. Okay, so that's a review of the problems with Wi-Fi as it existed. Now, in September 2019, there is a new Wi-Fi standard that they're calling Wi-Fi 6. It's IEEE 802.11ax. The old version of Wi-Fi AC, they're now calling that Wi-Fi 5, and the version before that, N, they're calling that Wi-Fi 4. So, great. That's a lot simpler, but it actually makes everything even more confusing. But you can forget about all that. All you need to know is that the new flavor of Wi-Fi, AX, we're all just calling it Wi-Fi 6. So Wi-Fi 6 makes several improvements, and as I mentioned, distance, interference sharing, and the whole MU-MIMO thing, the multi-user feature of Wi-Fi 5, that's all been improved in Wi-Fi 6. Now the main goal of Wi-Fi 6 is to relieve the problem of having too many Wi-Fi users, too many access points, too many transmitters everywhere, and it all just kind of overlaps and you get really, really crappy speeds. So the first improvement that Wi-Fi 6 makes is in distance. Apparently with Wi-Fi 6 you will get up to 4 times the performance at the maximum possible distance from your Wi-Fi box as you would with Wi-Fi 5. In terms of interference, Wi-Fi 6 uses something called OFDMA, which is Orthogonal Frequency Division Multiple Access. You don't have to know what that means. It's just a cool digital modulation scheme, and it makes everything better. Like, as I mentioned, Wi-Fi 6 is better for having multiple users connected at the same time and still giving each person not a great speed, but much better than before. OFDMA is instrumental in actually making that happen. Also, Wi-Fi 6 has several, I'm calling them anti-neighbor features. When you have a whole bunch of access points and devices and they're all transmitting, everybody kind of overlaps, and everyone's connection, sometimes the connections drop out, sometimes they slow down, and of course this irritates everyone. So Wi-Fi 6 includes 2 new features. One of them they're calling coloring. Now coloring, it's actually kind of like a secret code that's included when like a Wi-Fi access point is transmitting or when your computer is transmitting. They each include a color, and the color is basically a secret code that says, hey, I'm this network, and if you have an adjacent network, your neighbors have one, they'll transmit on a different color. So you might be red, you know, your Wi-Fi is red and their Wi-Fi is blue, and when those signals overlap, the various Wi-Fi gizmos, they're going to say, oh wait, no, I'm red, ignore the blue signals, and the blue Wi-Fi gizmos are going to say, no, I'm blue, ignore the red stuff. And that minimizes interference, basically. The second thing is called NAV, which is Network Allocation Vector. And this is kind of nebulous, but basically Wi-Fi 5 had 1 NAV and Wi-Fi 6 has 2 NAVs. Now a NAV is more or less like when your Wi-Fi gizmo is transmitting, it sort of says, hey everybody, don't transmit, I'm sending data now. And all those other devices have to wait until he's done. And of course they try and guess when he's going to be done, and there's all kinds of complex stuff that goes on. But with Wi-Fi 5 there was only 1 NAV, and the problem with that is that all the different networks in the area would sort of be put on hold while other ones were transmitting. That's oversimplified, but you get the idea. With Wi-Fi 6 there are 2 NAVs, so there's one for your local network and one for everybody else. So if you have your house, your Wi-Fi network has its own NAV. It has its own sort of queue for managing who can transmit when, and if it receives signals from your neighbors' houses, your neighbor's Wi-Fi, they're going to be on that second NAV, so your Wi-Fi gizmos will actually sort of, again, manage all the neighborly traffic much better, which means everyone's speed goes up and everyone's happier. So with Wi-Fi 6, we have better signals at long distance, we have more immunity to interference, and we also have better sharing, and the MU-MIMO is also improved. So in Wi-Fi 5, the MU-MIMO was only in the download direction, downloading to your gizmo, and it was up to 4 users could use it. In Wi-Fi 6, the download direction, they've doubled it, so up to 8 users can download using MU-MIMO, which means their connections are faster. And they add the upload direction, so when your gizmo is sending to the access point, they've added MU-MIMO to upload, period, and also up to 8 users can upload using MU-MIMO. So you get double the downstream MU-MIMO and 8 times the upstream MU-MIMO, and of course everyone should be happier. Okay, now there are a few other little goodies that Wi-Fi 6 includes. You probably have heard that they're saying like, well, it'll be like, 5 gigabits per second. Sometimes they're talking even 11 gigabits per second. Well, again, that's true. It's kind of like before when they said, oh, you'll get 2.2, and this time they're saying you'll get 5, you'll get 8, you'll get 11. Again, it's not exactly, no, that's the theoretical maximum. practically speaking, even the whole Wi-Fi consortium, they basically came out and said, okay, look, your nominal or your average improvement in Wi-Fi connection speed with Wi-Fi 6 will be about 37% faster than Wi-Fi 5. So if you're getting 200 megabits per second before, you will get 274 megabits per second, if I did my math right. Another benefit of Wi-Fi 6 is that they claim that the latency will be reduced by 75%. Now, latency, as you may know, is basically the wait time when you're sending or receiving data, and this is typically very important for, say, gamers. If you have a satellite internet connection, you know that it's very high latency. It takes a very long time for the signals to go way up to the satellite and then way back down to the base station, and then like the web page goes way up and back down again, and you have to wait sometimes 2 or 3 seconds. That's high latency. A wired connection is basically very, very low latency measured in milliseconds. And finally, they're also including WPA3. WPA3 is Wi-Fi protected access. It's basically your PIN, your password, your push button pairing of devices. It's essentially the security for your Wi-Fi router. And currently the standard is WPA2, and they're adding WPA3, which has some fancy new features and is supposed to be more secure, which is nice. Now, I have to note that initially all the Wi-Fi 6 routers, they are available for sale. They vary in price from, say, $80 all the way up to $548 was the most expensive one I saw, which is pretty crazy. Initially, they're going to be using the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz frequencies, the chunks of the spectrum. And eventually, they're going to add the 6 gigahertz spectrum, which is actually like 5.9 to 7.1 gigahertz. That's not going to show up right away. You're going to have to wait for that. And in fact, the whole Wi-Fi consortium people, they've come out and said, you know, essentially you're not going to get the full speed of Wi-Fi 6 until you also get a router that uses these extra bands. Also, the very first Wi-Fi 6 routers and devices that come out, they won't actually support, not only will they not support all the potential frequencies, but they're not going to support all the features just yet. So if you do like Wi-Fi, you may want to wait a while before adopting the Wi-Fi 6 technologies. And of course, I have to note that even if you get a Wi-Fi 6 router, if you have a smartphone, a tablet, a computer, and it doesn't support Wi-Fi 6, well, if you have a smartphone or tablet, you're in trouble. If you have a computer, you're going to have to upgrade the actual Wi-Fi card in the computer to one that is Wi-Fi 6 enabled. Yeah, so that's pretty much Wi-Fi 6. It is better, it is an improvement in several ways, but again, it's not the sort of end-all and be-all. If you go with a wired Ethernet network, it's still more stable, it's still consistently faster, and you don't have to worry about things like MU-MIMO and how many users can connect, because every switch and every cable and every Ethernet port runs at the full 1 gigabit per second speed. And unless you are absolutely saturating your Ethernet network with like constant gigabit per second streams of data, generally you will find extremely low latency and extremely high and consistent 1 gigabit per second speeds. And you'll just be a lot happier. Plus you don't get any of the, you know, RF flying around your house. So anyway, that's Wi-Fi 6. For more techie tips, see ScottiesTech.Info. Thanks for watching. See you next time.